Show, where conversation is art, 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 art. Conversation is art, conversation is art. You should chime in, ain't no telling what to spark on the Val Show. Ain't no telling the Val Show. You know, ain't no telling where we go on the Val Show. Ain't no ceiling, cause the art of conversation is the flow. It's that creativity available when we speak, available in our homes, available in the streets. We just trying to get it sparking and take it a little deeper. Keep it casual while fireside chatting with our people. Yeah, we take it a little deeper. It get hot when we fireside chatting with our people. Cause conversation is art, conversation is art. You should chime in, ain't no telling what'll spark on the Val Show. The Val Show.
Well, hello. Hope everybody's doing good. Welcome to the Val Show. And as you can see, we are minus one Val. However, I went out in these streets and I found me another V. We have Mr. Verlin Sally, who's our guest host tonight. And many of you may remember him from, he's the Sal Sauce man, and look, I got to tell y'all, I think I'm on my second round, but I got my third round in the closet. So the sauce is the boss. I'm just gonna tell y'all the truth. You did that. Hey, whatever the Lord gave you in that dream, it came through.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. So you all may be wondering, Valton wasn't here last week or this week. However, it's his beautiful wife's birthday tonight, so he got to go out and wine and dine. He couldn't come on, so. La Cherie, we're going to say happy birthday. May the Lord bless you and may you have many more. And we just thank everybody for joining us. Share this because we have a fantastic guest. Somebody I know personal, and it's been great to watch her just take on this trajectory. I mean, the highs, the lows, the ins and out. But look, she a boss lady. She persevered, did not give up. So, without further ado, I'm not even going to belabor it. I'm just going to tell y'all we got the wonderful, illustrious scientist, founder and CEO of STREAMInnovations.
Oh, my goodness.
Adrienne Starks, PhD, but tonight she's going to be Dr. Starks. That's what we're going to call her. She's a native of Alabama, a.k.a. Fairfield, Alabama at that. And look, we're just going to bring you in the room.
Let's
let
go.
you tell the folks what you want to know. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Yes.
For the opportunity to come on. This is so awesome.
Yes, of course. We've been trying to do this for a minute, but you've been so busy. So I had to squeeze it in, y'all.
Yeah, I like it. Love the introduction. All that true?
Look, no, I downplayed it. Look. I wasn't even going to about trying to recite stuff because the show would be over and we would not get into our interview.
Okay.
And look, I just want y'all to know what you're going to hear where she has gotten to. It didn't start out like that, okay? Now, see, a lot of people look at where she is and want to think, oh, I can do all that. You got to go through the fire to the limit, to the wall.
Yes,
okay?
You do.
For sure. So, Dr. Starks, first of all, how are you doing?
I am well. Trying to do two quick things at one time because I, people like myself sometimes, unfortunately, we double book. But I am great. I'm excited to be here and to talk a little bit about what has been going on. As I was so graciously introduced, Dr. Adrienne Starks, from Fairfield, went to Alabama A&M University for any Bulldogs that might be checking us out. And I have my PhD in biological sciences. Was in Maryland for some years, doing a postdoc and finishing my PhD at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and returned back home to Alabama to provide some support for students that know what they want to do and students that don't know what they want to do. And,
You help them
and
find their way, huh? You help
that's
them find their
everybody.
way.
That's everybody.
Well,
Is there a
yeah,
particular age range of these students? I mean, what ages you work with?
So our program, STREAMInnovations, science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We provide programming, hands-on programming for students now between third and now 12th grade.
Oh, okay.
We
That's what's
do
up.
programming in communities that are underrepresented and underserved. And we've had an opportunity to do our program since 2017. And currently, we have a program going on at the Birmingham Public Library system. We're currently in West End. We just left Central Downtown. Next
Mm-hmm.
month, we'll be at 5 Points West. And after that, we'll be on Springville, as well as partnerships with the local YMCA, downtown, as well as Roebuck. And all of that is how do we provide exposure to different disciplines? And right now we're doing how the human body works. Do people understand? Do kids understand? Where's your kidney? Where's your liver? What is the function of your pancreas? Next month we will do robotics, and the last month we will round out with agriculture. So how do we do many of these different things so that kids can understand what is it that I like, because I've never been exposed to this. Do I like it? Can I continue to do this when I grow up? And as well, I don't like that. So I make sure to tell students it's perfectly okay if you don't like it. It's one thing you could check off your list, because it's a large list of things that you could potentially do.
that's great. That's great. I heard you
That's
mention
awesome.
agriculture.
I did too.
Okay. So we're covering the gamut, of
We
what
are.
the opportunities. And I
We
think
are.
sometimes we forget that. I know, hey, growing up, for me, it was teacher, social worker, a nurse, kind of sort of were the female,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
secretary, or
Mm-hmm.
secretary. I mean, it wasn't even the doctors, even the scientists, and all of that for me. Uh, and of course, you come from a line of healthcare/science with
I
your
do.
mother being a nurse. You have a sister that's a nurse. I mean, and your brother is an engineer. And
He
of course,
is.
dad is the finance person. Somebody got to figure out how to keep this money.
That's right.
Somebody.
That's right.
Somebody.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
somebody had to do that. So now Dr. Starks, let's back up and start. How did you even discover you love science? How did that even come about? Because generally speaking, math and science are the two things that students generally do not like.
So I think it depends on how it's introduced. Most students have a curiosity for something.
True.
And for me, that curiosity was around way back in the golden years when we had a Toys R Us book that came out for Christmas. And for others that remember service merchandise,
Oh yeah.
you would
I
go
do.
through around Christmas time and pick out the things that you wanted.
That
And what I
catalog.
picked out, the catalogs, a lot of people don't know what paper catalogs look like. But I always picked out science stuff because I thought I wanted to try it.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I picked out a microscope that I wanted Santa Claus to bring me for Christmas. And from there, I just kind of got lost in curiosity and discovery, and I wanted to know more. I'll say the same for my brother. For Christmas, he asked for Lincoln Logs and erector sets and Legos. So now he's a structural engineer. And
Okay.
it's connected to what are some things that you could try. I also enjoyed painting and doing a number of other things, but science was the thing for me that I could do for hours and kind of get lost in.
Now, where are you on that sibling spectrum? You the youngest, oldest, middle?
The oldest.
You're the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Did you influence anybody behind you, or did they stuck with their Lego sets and they went to engineer? Did anybody kind of want to go your path at all?
Everyone had their own lane.
Okay.
So I enjoyed science. My brother, he had a curiosity around how buildings were formed and how big of a building he could build.
Okay.
I had my microscope. He had his thing of Legos. For my sister, her thing was, if anything, if anyone on our block had a scrape or a cut or anything of that nature, they were coming to our house and use up all our band-aids so that she could patch them up. And a lot of that is natural. My mom is a retired RN as well, but she never forced us to consider medicine or to consider health. It really was at a young age, what are the things that you gravitate towards? There were other things that I enjoyed, but for me, I continued to choose science. For my brother, he continued to choose engineering. And my sister, at some point decided, I want to be a nurse. And having a nurse as a role model and as a mother was a great way for her to get into the profession.
And honey, let me tell you, that role model baby, she ain't play. Hey,
Okay. All
you
right.
had,
Shout out
oh
to
yes,
Adrienne.
quality. Look, quality and all of it. She was the boss, and I mean, and like I said, she became my mentor. She actually, one of the jobs I actually applied for, it was her encouraging me. And you had, I mean, you was gonna toe the line. There wasn't gonna be no slacking under the
Mm-mm,
under the hand
mm-mm,
of Maxine Starr. So I mean, that's great.
mm-mm,
Well, you know what, Dr. Stars, I thought about this. Let's drill out on this because this is key. Parents sometimes try to control their children's narrative rather than pouring into. I always say, if you look at a kid growing up, they will show you what God put them in this earth realm to do. Now, we can do many things, but that special thing to me,
mm-hmm,
they always gravitate toward that. I mean, the other
mm-hmm,
things can be like their little hobbies, and they may do other things,
mm-hmm,
but that's so important because it could have been very easy pushing toward the finance, or you just need to go to nursing school because that's
because I'm a
easier.
nurse. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
nurse and that type thing. I didn't get anybody to even lean toward healthcare in my house. I guess being an emergency room nurse, they thought, "Ooh, you work too hard, mama," but I loved it. It was what I
Mm-hmm,
was. Well, I always say, I think I was called to do it too because I
mm-hmm,
always liked it. But I also think my mom guided me toward it
mm-hmm,
being in that time. That's what they kind of did, a way for you to take care of yourself. And
mm-hmm,
of course, not having all that knowledge, she didn't know there was other things that I could have pursued. But like
mm-hmm,
you, I fell in love with science in high school. I mean, it
mm-hmm.
was exciting to me. And I was like, give me something else to cut open. Let me do the, we were doing dissected earthworms.
So that seventh grade Miss Ballard, Forest Hills Middle School in Fairfield, my first worm dissection was the
Yes.
thing. I loved it. It was all of it. I was like, give me another worm. You don't want to do yours? I'll do yours. My brother, that wasn't his thing.
And the frog we did. We did the
I did the
frog
frog
too.
too.
That was it. Okay, y'all. So we're a little geeky. Y'all will be okay. Y'all will be okay.
We
Y'all
help the
need us.
world. We do that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah. Did
sure.
all
So
that.
once you got this curiosity, I was reading in your bio, you ended up going to a science, was it a science program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham? My so what was that like for you?
So that was a really pivotal point for me. I was a freshman in high school, and my mom was at Cooper Green, and I heard about science programs. I was the older kid, so there wasn't someone in front of me to say, "Hey, go in this direction, do this thing. I know these people."
Mhm.
I was always curious, trying to figure out how can I get some exposure to do some different things. That was just naturally me, right? So there was a program called BioTeach at UAB. It was at Volcker Hall, I remember. And we had an opportunity to explore science. It was the first time that we looked at journal articles, as well as we did experiments in a real lab. We had an opportunity to
Awesome.
meet other scientists that were there. We had an opportunity to look at some of the animals that they did research on, and it didn't freak me out. But it connected why science and research was important in a way that you couldn't receive in a regular classroom.
True.
And for me, it was the moment that I said, I think I want to keep doing this. So after that, I did a second internship. And may I also add that in science, your internships are usually paid. So I was paid to go learn. I was paid.
Was this in high school?
Yes, this was in high school. Uh-huh.
What?
I was paid to do this, so that
Okay.
made it even better. So
Oh
the
yeah,
second,
definitely. Some change in your pocket. You know what you make me
Yeah.
think about, Dr. Starks? And I don't know what year it was at UAB. Before we got to the actual, and we always said live cadaver. Y'all, that's oxymoron. The cadaver's not live. But
they're never live. Yeah.
anyway, we started out with a cat. Now, to me, it was a miniature lion. That was the biggest cat. I'm like, where y'all got this cat from? But I would never forget. I had a test coming up after Thanksgiving. So I had to drive this cat to Atmore. And when I get home, I was like, I need to put this in the refrigerator. My mom was like, you're
Uh-uh.
not storing that thing. So my daddy had to go out and get this big cooler and we had to
Cooler.
ice down this cat so I could study while I was at home. And that's the thing I loved about UAB because even some schools don't have those type labs and everything
Mm-hmm.
where you really get those touches. So it is really
Mm-hmm.
great. But I gotta
Mm-hmm.
back up and ask you this. Now, when you showed up to this little science program,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, how many other people there represented look like you?
Mm-hmm.
And how many females were there look like you or females, period?
Mm-hmm. So I am very young, but I do not remember too far back.
Oh, she's very young right now, but don't remember too far back. Okay.
I don't know if that's good.
This was in high school.
Hey,
So
but she remembers service merchandise.
now, if you don't remember your Christmas stories, now I can't
Oh.
I can't do that. I cannot calculate in the demographics of all the places. But what I do know is that I was the only person there from Fairfield.
Okay.
There were other students there from Parker, from Huffman, from Indian Springs,
Okay.
from Altamont, from Winona, and there were a couple of white kids, there were a couple of Indian kids, and there were Black students. And it was
That's
the first
great.
time that I had an opportunity to be in a multicultural space
Okay, great.
where I didn't feel intimidated because they were all high school students.
Mhm.
But even at that time, I realized that some of them had a little bit more of an edge. So
Gotcha.
maybe I needed to work a little bit harder, which was fine. But it was not a space where I realized that there were not many girls in that space because there were quite a few Black girls in that space. There were quite a few Black boys in that space. And some of us continued on in science, and many of them did not. But it was an opportunity to take the summer to see if this is something that you might want to do.
Too. Look, and knowing me, look, back in the day, you had some kids like, you getting paid, honey. I don't want to be no scientist, but I'm finna go get this. I'm finna go get this money. I
I'm a
like
little
science
surprised
for a
by
summer.
that. Yeah, that surprised me when she said they got paid. That's very
Yes.
interesting. Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
summer program that I have done, except for maybe the exception of one, maybe, I've been
Okay.
paid. So the
Nice.
next summer I did a internship at UAB again doing cancer research. So we worked on mice and looking at brain cancer. So it was a really great opportunity. So we were still a group of students, but we all had a researcher that we would spend, the day with. And we
Mhm.
might come together once a week collectively. But we were in a lab, I think that was my sophomore year, every day.
That's
And
great.
it
That
was a
is
great
great.
experience. It helped me to understand if I had the stomach to continue to do this because we worked with mice. So, like, you have to touch them and move them and measure tumors and understand why what you're doing is important and trying to envision the long road of doing this experiment in animals. And, if I was a huge vet type person, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But connecting this to how this can support humans in the future. where you can't do those same type of experiments to understand how pharmaceuticals would work or how cancers metastasize in the brain on humans. So those types of experiments are very difficult to do in humans.
Humans, yeah.
Now, let
Go
me get
on.
one in there, Val. So
I'm
I'm,
reading.
I'm living with you in high school. By the way, I was a biology major too. So
Okay.
I'm living with you in high school, right? And you seem accomplished as a high school student, having internships and exposure, right? Take me from living in Alabama, I'm finishing up high school, and I can choose from Alabama, Auburn, hell, Tuskegee got a lab, George Washington Carver made fan. What made you choose A&M? I'm curious about this one.
What are you trying to say?
No,
What made me choose A&M?
Oh, she
What are
set
you
up on
trying
you,
to
Berlin.
say, sir?
look here. If you wanted to be the Val and Dr. Sock show, we can change it. But I'm interviewing you. So
What
tell
are
me,
you saying about
no,
my alma
I ain't
mater?
throwing no shade. I ain't throwing no shade. I'm like, you had a lot of schools to choose from, and you talented. I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you, and I have not really spoken about this as frequently. I had an opportunity to receive some letters from some institutions in Massachusetts, as well as some institutions in some other places. And, I was very blessed and fortunate on that journey with my parents. And they said, pick the place you want to go and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So money wasn't the thing that I was thinking about. But of course, I definitely wanted to receive some scholarships. But I was concerned about if my exposure in Alabama, and not just at a Black high school in a Black community, but if I would be able to excel in these other spaces where students had access, not just at school, but it's their neighbors that had access. It's them going off on vacations and interning with your mom's friend or your dad's friend or something like that. And wondering, would I lose my sense of self? Would I feel as if I was inferior to others? And because of that, I didn't fully apply to all the places that I could have. And it wasn't because, so this is something, for any parent that's like, my child will never do that. But I never told my parents about those fears.
Wow.
Yeah.
This wasn't, at that point, I didn't want to have a full open conversation and dialogue about how I was thinking about myself and if I could compete. Because if you're going to go, you don't want to lose. I like to win.
Yeah.
I can tell.
So, yes, the experience, I think college provides an opportunity for you to have tremendous exposure to not just the things within your discipline, but the people and the culture around wherever you're going. I didn't know if I would be able to thrive there. And more than likely I could have, but I wasn't really willing to take that risk at that time. I had applied to a number of schools across Alabama. And to be honest with you, I never applied to Alabama. I never applied to Auburn.
Good.
And
Did you apply to UAB?
Oh!
You didn't apply to UAB?
Yes,
Oh
she
my
did.
goodness.
Oh my
When it
goodness.
got their money, didn't apply.
I didn't. And the reason I didn't apply is because although I said everything I just told you, everything, I wanted to leave Alabama.
Okay.
You wanted to leave Alabama.
But I was just a little afraid to.
So you went to the Tennessee state line, but she said, I'm going.
I'm going as high as I can
go.
Yes, and Alabama A&M came through with the full ride.
Oh, that's a motivator right there.
That's enough for me.
I mean, there were other places that provided scholarships, and they did well, but Alabama A&M came through with the full ride. And many of my friends that were in honors classes with me, they had decided to go to A&M as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted a little bit more security. I I wasn't quite ready to jump out into the world. I knew I always wanted to, but for whatever reason, I was a bit timid, and I just wasn't sure of myself.
Well, honey, you've been
That's
cured of
it.
all that now.
Oh, really?
But you know
Oh,
what
okay.
though? I want
Mhm.
to address that, and yeah, and I'm glad you shared that,
Thank you. Yes.
Dr. Starks, because that's real. That's real for us, period, in certain spaces where we feel like, am I good enough? Or am I
Mhm,
gonna be successful here? I mean, we
mhm,
gotta talk about that, being black, being
mhm,
female, it's a struggle. I
mhm,
mean, and definitely if you're a black female and you're vocal, that's a triple label, but it is very real. So hopefully folks that are listening can have those conversations with their children. But let me say this about A&M. A&M produced some of our black scientists, mathematicians, and all of that. It was one of the schools that few engineers that could produce black engineers for us. So we just thank
Hmm.
God for that. And actually, that's where God needed you to go. That was your
Yes.
path.
That's what it
I mean,
was.
we always say people should have done something different. I believe, God truly orders our steps. And I know your family comes from a believer that God orders your steps. You needed to go to Alabama A&M
mhm,
because you had some things you needed to do and get your more confidence. And this what I say. What I didn't get at UAB was I did not have that tribe. It's something about the camaraderie. When you go to a HBCU, that's family for life.
it
That's
is.
family for life. That didn't happen at UAB, okay? I got a couple friends out of the deal, okay? Ain't no family for life. We ain't I mean, it's true. It's true. You go to class and you really, you study with them while you're there, but that's it. And that's the truth of it.
Coming from somebody that went to both, so I went to HBCU and a PWI, I would tell you, for most of us, it's going to sound strange, we were at a HBCU at the
We've been
PWI because they didn't mess with us. They left us alone, and we had to be amongst each other and do things for each other, or it didn't get done. So
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
That's
we had more
great. That's
resources.
great.
I would say that we had a lot of resources, but you, Miss Young Lady, you get to A&M,
mhm.
and it wasn't all science. So what else shaped you at A&M outside of the lab?
Um, I was in honors college, so yeah, I was totally that kid. It is
Oh,
what it is. It was honors college. I was always searching for what was the next thing that I could do. At the
okay.
time, I thought I wanted to be a physician. That was what the goal was, to go to medical
Mm-hmm.
school. And I started an organization called the Future Physician Society because I wanted us to have a better pathway to figure out how we were going to go to medical school for anyone else that wanted to go. Um, while I was there, also ran for senior class president, so I had
Look
that
at
my senior
you.
year. So there were quite a few things. Some people have asked, and some people assume I did not pledge while I was at A&M, and it's something that many people assume has occurred. It has not, but
Okay.
I had a number of people that were very impactful in my life. Now, what I will say, the HBCU experience, it's a great one, and I think I was a little bit under the illusion that once I left A&M, I would still see this level of blackness
Oh,
in
no.
other places that I went.
I don't know how you thought
And
that.
Hey,
no
you
one
got
told
that
me that,
shock.
but this is what I thought, to walk out and see all of the very handsome black men that Alabama A&M had on its campus at that time.
Okay.
It was a beautiful
Okay.
thing. Many people go there to find a partner. Um, that was not on my mind at the time. I dated
Good.
people at that time, but but for many people, that is where you find your lifelong friends and lifelong
Yeah.
partnerships because
Mm.
you're in a space that is nurturing. You're in a space where you're having fun. You're in a space where you are challenging who you are and who you can become from 18 to 21 or 22 or however long you're there.
Mm-hmm.
What I will also say is I had a couple of amazing professors that supported me. One, I remember my microbiology professor. I had a little, I never liked 8 o'clock classes. Never liked them at all. And occasionally just could not make class on time. And my professor, Dr. Ward, who's a white gentleman, older white gentleman, he pulled me to the side one day. He was like, Adrienne, I need you to stay after class for a minute. I was like, okay. So he was like, I think that you are a very intelligent young woman, but you cannot continue to come to my class late. You cannot continue to come to my class late and think that you will receive an A from my class. I need you to respect the time that it takes for me to, provide you the materials that you need in order to be successful and to come on time. He was not disrespectful. He poured into me and saw that timeliness is important. It's very important.
Yeah.
And I just thought I could kind of roll in when I got ready. And, if you went to A&M or you go to A&M, and I don't know what it looks like now, you had to put yourself together before you walked out the door. So I needed to make sure that I was together before I went to my 8 o'clock.
Well, COVID don't freed a lot of people now. COVID has freed us. You can show
It ain't
up.
changed HBCU. It ain't changed HBCU. Trust me, it didn't. COVID ain't changed that.
It's changed a little bit because the class it used to be, uptight. You had to be
that ain't
dressed.
school,
But now,
though.
she's
talking about going to class. I know what she's talking about.
I know.
So there were many of young ladies that wore heels going to class every day. And it was where I first received my training for my ankles and for my calf muscles.
Just a letter. Well, wait a minute now.
You got to train them. But all of that was a part of my experience.
Yeah, true.
Finding other people that had like minds, like faith, being a part of a church, or another thing that I loved was there were quite a few people that did spoken word. There were quite a few spaces where, I learned about my heritage in ways that my school never would have taught me. I had really good friends that challenged me as to why I did not know this. And it was just a really great experience that helped me before I went to a predominantly white institution in Maryland. And it gave me some confidence, the confidence that I needed to go in other spaces and compete.
What was the biggest difference, the variance between A&M and now I'm going to Maryland?
So Alabama A&M University is a phenomenal institution. I should have done my research when I applied and was accepted to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, which is an honors college. So the differences are many. They are many in a lot of different ways. Culturally, there are at least 100 different countries represented there. There is a very large Asian population there. At one point, it was a, kind of a commuter school where, because Washington, D.C., in Maryland and Virginia, that area has a lot of people that, have family that are in the country for business with the government. And one of the major differences between A&M and UMBC had nothing to do physically with the school. It had everything to do with the leadership.
Gotcha.
So Dr. Freeman Rabowski, who is from Birmingham, was the president there. He's African American. Don't let the Rabowski fool you. He's African American. But he was also a part of the Children's Crusade when he was a kid here. He also, for a brief moment of time, was a dean at Alabama A&M. And he was also one of the main reasons that I decided to go to UMBC, because He believed in the importance of African American students going after advanced degrees for PhDs and for MDs. He believed that all of us should have an MD or a PhD, if not both, in some field that you can change the world in. And listening to him was a major game changer for me because I had never experienced someone like him before. And to have someone like that as your president, as
Right.
well as, over the years to become a mentor, it was a complete game changer.
Awesome.
Wow, that's
Awesome.
great. I mean, and it's giving me chills here, your story, Adrian, because I
Yeah.
never heard it in this depth. It's God ordering your steps. I mean, what's the chances? Did she just freeze up? Don't be doing this.
Oh, did she? Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought she was listening intensely.
She just froze up. I don't know what happened. She'll come back. She'll realize that let me take her off till she comes back on. But anyway, what I was saying was that God was ordering her steps because what's the chances of you having a president of A&M that ends up going to another major school
Yeah. Yeah.
and everything? So that's just amazing within itself. So while we're waiting for her to come back on, we're going to talk about how you all can do to help her, because she has a 501c3 nonprofit means she
Mhm.
relies on donations, you all. And of course she gets sponsorships too, but she also need, and I'm gonna say us, and I mean definitely our Black community, to support. And I'm putting it down there. I've also put it in the chat. You can cash app at $STREAMInnovations, because we talk about what our kids don't have access to, but we're not willing to go in our pockets and help sponsor someone. You don't have to have a child to go there. You can support it. I support her, and we've also had another Fairfield person on, and her name is Devin Frazier, in whom she
No, she's back.
knows. Yeah, I got to get us straight. Hold on a minute. That ain't the look I want. There we
Man,
go.
look out. Oh, hold on. Well, I'm in the middle. Oh,
I
this is
moved her. I
Val, look at
moved
you.
her.
You really do know how to move this thing. I see.
Yeah. Look, I told Satan, get thee behind us when you froze. But what I was doing, I'm sharing your Cash App for Stream Innovation, telling them that you
Yes.
need their
Thank you.
support and everything. And you don't have to have anybody that is attending there. We have to support. We have to
Mm,
support. We complain about
Thank you.
things. It's time to put your
Yeah.
money where your mouth is, okay? And I was sharing that Devin Frazier, who you probably went
Thank
to
you.
school with, who's doing I See Me Inc. So she's doing something about literacy, you all of it ties in together. To
Mm-hmm.
be able to grasp this math and
It
science and all
does.
this stream stuff, you got to be able to read and comprehend first what your
yeah.
lesson
You
is.
do. You do.
Most
Amen. Mhm.
definitely,
And she's a
most
product of
definitely.
Fairfield as well. Yep.
Yes, for sure, for sure. So now you're up there at UMC. How did that go? Was it a, embracing type things, or did you kind of have to speak up for them to know you were there?
It was a major transition in life. If you ask my parents, they heard from me more while I was in graduate school than
Yeah,
anything, because
Wow.
it
we
was
were
it
praying,
was
honey.
it
We was praying.
was a lot of
She was trying to come
prayers.
home.
I wasn't trying to come home.
She was trying to
They
stay
heard
and not
from me
kill
because
nobody.
it was it was hard. It
Mhm.
was hard. Like, there's no easier way to put it. It was very difficult. It was very rigorous. The
Mm.
expectation was much higher than what I had seen anywhere else. And as I said in the beginning, I didn't do my research. It was a whole honors college.
Gotcha.
So their expectation for excellence superseded that. So let me tell you what excellence looks like, right? So you remember during the pandemic, there was this beautiful woman that worked for Moderna called, her name was Dr. Kismikia Corbett.
Yes.
Yes.
She's a graduate of UMBC.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
They have multiple graduates, African Americans, that have an MD, they have a PhD, or have both.
Hmm.
And it's not just because they decided to go there. There was a program called the Meyerhoff Fellowship. Well, I was a graduate for the graduate fellowship. There was an undergraduate component where Robert Meyerhoff put millions of dollars with Dr. Rabowski to increase the number of African American students that could leave undergrad and obtain a PhD or MD. So the
Wow.
rigor that they went through in order to support them to be able to perform at high levels, that was the base there. The phone
Woo.
calls were, once again, me battling my own internal idea of, can I compete? Am I good enough? The fact that this was very hard and wondering if it was because I couldn't understand or I didn't know how to study, like had to change study habits, all of that. And, the other thing I did not know is that after your first semester of graduate school, just nationally, more than 40% of students drop out.
I can see that.
I didn't know that. How
Because I
much?
can
What's
tell
the
you about
percent?
me. After I got my master's, the Dr. Tarver was like, Jones, you can go to Troy State and get your PhD free. I told him, I said, Dr. Tarver, if y'all beam down in my living room and teach the course, I won't be attending. I won't be there. I mean, that was it for me. Because I was like you. I was like, to me, I studied hard in my master's program. I was like, I ain't got no more to give. I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that.
It's
So
a lot. That age range is tricky because you want to support your family if you have a family and being able to carve out that time to study.
yeah,
For me, I went straight through, so I didn't have I don't have a master's. I just have a PhD. So I went completely through the program.
Wow.
Um, so there's a lot of things that go on that went on in my 20s that I dedicated that whole time to obtaining this degree. And it wasn't easy. I had really great support system. I had to learn how to develop support systems around me where collectively we wanted to thrive and do well and obtain our degrees.
I can
And,
imagine.
it had to be people that didn't look like you and people that look like you, but people
Hmm.
that value you and could play hard and could work hard. Both of those are important.
Gotcha. You still your connection's still a little sketchy, but your voice is good. So I'm
Yeah.
glad.
Okay.
Usually the voice will go out too. So let's talk about this. I've heard you oftentimes refer to the triple minority. So what what was that like for you? And explain that to folks because they may not. They're like, wait a minute, triple minority. Now we're gonna have
Yeah. I'm
quadruple. We're
listening.
gonna have it
I'm listening for
all.
this. Yeah. I don't know this one. What's a triple minority?
Yes. So after I finished at UMBC with my PhD in biological sciences, I was studying quantitative genetics and went to talk to the president of UMBC and say, hey, this was my experience. And he said, what are you going to do next? And I said, I'm sure. And he said, you should consider health disparities. And I said, okay, great. I didn't question it because I didn't want to seem like I didn't know what he was talking about. And I didn't. So
Hmm.
I went to research it later. And he said, I think you would be great in health disparities because you understand the health aspect of it and you can bring the quantitative genetics part where you can help communities understand why our communities are disproportionately impacted by negative health impacts, violent impacts, all of the social determinants of health, which really disrupt well-being in communities of color in particular. So when I went to, I did a postdoc at the National Institutes of Health. And at that point, there were not many domestic scientists in my area. A majority of them were either Asian or Indian, like Indian,
Hmm.
or from other parts of the world outside of America. Two, African American. There were no other African American scientists in my area after that first 6 months that I was there. The other young lady that was there, she left. And she left for good reason. So I can't fault her. I was in a cancer lab, and I was studying breast and prostate disparities. She was studying lung cancer. The other two groups were studying pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. And she had just gone through breast cancer, so she was a breast cancer survivor. And what she could not compartmentalize is looking at these national numbers and seeing herself in that number.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So as much as she wanted to be able to support the research and helping to identify cures for cancer, it was very difficult to separate the two, that she was truly one of those numbers as well. So she left, and I was the only African American scientist in that space. There were African American women there, but they were the executive assistants.
Okay.
And then as a woman in science, there are predominantly more men, white, Asian, Indian, that are studying. So that would be a triple minority.
Wow, that's a lot. I was like, look, we have enough struggles. Then you added a triple to it.
What was the third one? I got gender. I got African American. What was the third one?
I think it was been American. I think was one you said, right?
Oh,
because majority are from other,
American.
Countries.
American. In that department, it was predominantly Asian, Indian.
Hold on, Adrienne, you garbled. I don't know what's
yeah,
going
you might have
on.
to bring it back, Val.
Let me see.
Take it off.
Is your weather gotten bad out there in Fairfield? Because she's sorry. But look, okay, so what I'm going to do next, you all know Valton has his film camp coming up. So if you go on his website, Facebook page, you can see how to register your children. It's coming up the last week in March, spring break. And they're going to be at the downtown Birmingham YMCA. And he's going to have...
open? I thought the Y was closed. The downtown Y was closed.
It probably will. The Y, one of them, Y, it's still a Y down there. I think the building, I think they're still probably going to have some of the programs because they have built a new one for youth. I think that may be where it is going to be.
Okay.
But anyway, go to his Facebook page and you will be able to find that information there to attend that camp. I don't know any of his contact information. He tell him he needs to send that to us because he need help with that too, to send kids to camp. Yeah. So remember that. Made it back.
I did.
Hey, I want to get to struggling after you get to talking good stuff. So look, let's break down this triple minority. So you say it's because you were American,
domestic,
Black,
yes,
and a female.
Mm-hmm.
So I can relate to that because my great niece in Michigan is in biomedical engineering. And boy, she say, Auntie, she say, I'm ready to turn some chairs over. She would literally have to she said she would literally have to stand up and say, excuse me, I'm speaking.
So it's that part, but also science is a team sport.
Yeah.
There are not many scientists where you know all the answers and you can do everything by yourself. True. So when I say they're Asian scientists, there's a community of Asian scientists where English is not their first language.
Yeah.
And there's trust and there's community there to solve problems together and to help each other. They would see each other after we left the lab. They would, do a number of different things together. They would support each other's development. And that was because culturally they identified and connected together. And, yes, you go back and forth about wondering, if someone is treating you differently because you don't look like them. The other part of it is because you don't look like them, they may not feel as comfortable welcoming you into their communities in order for you to, do the work that you need to do. And, as well, I don't fully fault that because naturally we all gravitate towards people that have similarities to us, whether it's all women or all men or the same culture, the same faith, or you're from the same part of town or you're from the same state. you naturally want to find similarities with people so that you can further, um, you know, do things together.
True. Very true. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm so glad you stayed the course. Now I got to share this, and I hope your mom is listening. So when you did your stick with the NIH, and you decided, wait a minute, I'm finna go back home. And I can remember your mama. I don't know what's wrong with Adrienne. She was all got in schooling, and now she talking about she finna come back here and start a what? I mean,
She didn't say that to me. You
What she
telling
said?
all
Come
the
on,
tea right
baby.
now.
yeah, I'm spilling the tea.
You
But
telling the
but
tea.
I'm gonna tell you what it is. It goes back to, we were just talking about the diversity and the difference. There's a diversity in generations. Your mom's generation, because your mom is a baby boomer.
Mhm.
Baby boomers like, and some Gen X like, y- you gonna not what? Are you crazy? Whereas millennials and these Gen Z like, okay, see ya. Next, next, next. So for them, it's like you get a job. It may not be perfect, or may not, you just got to deal with it. Well, the world is definitely different now, and people do not deal with it.
That's
Now
right.
that can be bad, because one thing I tell my kids, everything is not going to be easy.
Mhm.
However, there are some things you got to learn to just push through and adapt. Yes, speak up for yourself, but there's just some things that come with life. And you,
Mhm.
you can't have a bunch of people thinking that I'm going to get my way all the time, because that's not how the world is. So
Mhm.
yeah, so look, I spilled a tea on her. She was, you had her stress level at 1710, but she did what parents supposed to do. It's like when my daughter told me she was gonna go to be a physical therapist. My heart stood still. I said, "Oh my God, I don't want her doing it by the physical therapy. That will not be a good thing. Jesus, fix it." But as her mother, I didn't say anything. And thankfully, like you, she had a professor come and say, "Girl, what you doing? What are you
Mhm.
talking about physical therapist? You are a gifted writer. You need to be a journalist." And so
Mhm.
that's what I had poured into her. So I was kind of like, where did this physical therapy come from? And it was mainly because she liked sports, and she had been a trainer when she went
Mhm.
to high school. But I was like, thank you, Jesus. But had I said anything, it would have been detrimental. So with that, I want you all out there to understand, you want to encourage and offer your advice to your kids, but your job is there to support. And sometimes in that support, you have to let them bump their own heads and figure it out. And don't say I told you so, even though in your spirit, that's what you say.
You giving all of the tea. I cannot wait to talk to my mom.
Yeah. So that makes a big difference. And I'm so happy. And I was like, I'm proud of her, honey. Let her go do it. So with
Mm.
that being said, you come back home and you like, I'm
Mhm.
finna grow me some scientists out of my, well, not just scientists, but from STEM, out of my own community. I'm gonna do this. So tell the people how I started out, and then we're gonna come around to where you are now.
So this was definitely not in the works, in the plans ever. I had never had any intention of ever coming back. So because my mom has known me from the beginning, she knew that my plan was always to go and go further.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to have gone through everything I did in graduate school to then return back in an education role, I've
Mm-hmm.
never spoken of anything like this ever, period. And there's a level of stability that you have in STEM careers that other careers just do not afford you.
True.
And I was gearing towards that stability. So as the oldest child, as a daughter, you want to ensure that your child has stability. And that was the path that I was going down. So I decided to come back for a couple of months because my postdoc was a bit challenging and I was going to do a second postdoc. And that is not something that's not typical. It's very typical
Mhm.
now because at that time there weren't a lot of professors leaving universities that should have been retiring. So people were doing 2 and 3 postdocs, waiting for opportunities to come up in order to go into a professorship so that you could do research as well. So my plan was to come home for a couple of months and start a nonprofit around education to get students to like science, because there were so many people that I knew from Fairfield that wanted to give back because they had left, or from Alabama, but there was no vehicle for them to pour into to do that and still stay in the places that they were in. And that's what I wanted to do, with the full intention of going back to Maryland.
Oh, you wanted to go back.
That was my intention that first year, to go back. And I talked to my mom about it. I prayed about it a lot, because something that I knew is that if I made the decision to stay in Alabama and not work at the bench, because I definitely could have, applied to UAB as well, because I have degrees, like I have the pedigree to do that. I knew if I stepped away, I could never go back, ever. And I use the example, if you had a medical doctor that went to medical school and started training and took 5 years off from practicing, would you want him or her to practice on you? You would not. So the same is with research. So started STREAMInnovations, one, because of the conversation around community, but also because the city that I knew, of Fairfield, was not reflected in the current state in, late 2015, 16. It wasn't the same that I saw when I was much younger, that afforded me to have community of people that supported me. I am a third generation Fairfield High School graduate. My grandfather graduated from Fairfield High. He graduated from Fairfield Industrial High School. Let me say that right. And
you got that right.
For those that know, there was tremendous pride with being able to graduate from that school because of the community that was there. So I also had tremendous pride in the city that I grew up in. But I also saw that there weren't a lot of people making the decision to go into science and to be in the places that I was, for a number of reasons. So I wanted to be able to give back for a few months and then go back to Maryland and run it from there. That was the plan.
So that didn't work out.
Did not work out.
So
7 years later.
7 years later, and going through just building, getting funding and everything, that was hard work. So from 2015, at what point did you feel like you got the stability where STREAMInnovation was stable and up and running where you wanted it to be?
I will say, for many people that are founders of companies, and particularly nonprofits, and as well as executive directors, that word stable and sustainable is very tricky, especially when you throw a pandemic in the middle of that as well, where people are not giving at the same level or at all, because they have to be concerned about their personal well-being and livelihood. I think right before the pandemic, we were getting ready to take a major stride and go after a number of grants because we had some data to show the work that we were doing. And then the pandemic hit. And this year is the first year that we've done face-to-face programming again since the pandemic. So to answer your question, we are still looking to grow, to be able to be substantial and to have the type of teams. I'm always looking for people that we can add to our team that can carry out the mission that God has shown me. And
that's great.
I'm really, really clear that I can never do all of this by myself. It has to be connected to other people that equally have a passion in different ways to see our communities look better in STEM, in STEAM, and STREAM education, but as well as our state.
That's great. That's so awesome. Look, so our time is we're gonna run over a little bit tonight, y'all. Y'all be okay. But anyway, so I dropped her website in the chat. You all need, because it's too much to even try to even tell you what this young lady has accomplished, and the many awards. Most recently, you had the NAACP award. I can't think what's the title of it,
It's a
Dr. Stark?
Trailblazer Award.
Trailblazer, and that is very befitting. However,
You.
this and I'm gonna throw this up here. I'm putting the flyer up because I tried to upload the picture and it's acting crazy now. The if then she can, look you all, this right here is major. This is major. Um, this is Dr. Starks here with a statue that's her height and everything, and it's even standing. Look, I
You look
laughed.
taller.
I laughed when I saw it. I said, even got your little bow legs in it. That was so funny to me. You and your mom have that same stand. And of course, you see, Dr. Stars, I was nice. I used a picture of you with your statue. However, I must tell the people, I got to see it first.
You
Just so
did.
happened, we were going to Dallas to visit my daughter, and it was there that weekend. And I drove 100 miles
Oh,
because, look, because where this mall was, but I was determined to get there and take some pictures. And what I discovered there, it was several black females there.
Mhm.
However, there were many there were just fascinated with Dr. Stark's statue, and it was just so awesome to see people there. So make sure you all support. This is major. This is for our kids. And
that's
so
beautiful.
that is major. And tell the people where your statue is, honey. Tell the people where
Yeah.
it is.
So, last year the collection of statues was at the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. It was the largest collection of women, real women statues that has ever been displayed at the nation's capital. It returned to Dallas, Texas, in October of last year, and there are, I think, maybe 50 of the statues that are currently on display at a couple of different museums downtown Dallas, Texas. My statue, unfortunately, is in the warehouse in Dallas,
Oh,
Texas.
Why is it in the warehouse? Well, look, tell them they need to send it to Birmingham. Tell the Birmingham Museum
for
of Art to
real.
get your statue.
So all of this, you're like, what in the world is a statue? So this entire initiative was called If Then. So if you support a woman in STEM, then
Then
she can change the world. And 124 women were selected around the country to represent women that are in STEM to be role models for middle school girls to consider
Awesome.
STEM as a career.
and
So
everything.
I'm the only woman represented from Alabama that has a statue, but there are two of us from
From the whole
Alabama.
state.
Yes. Thank you. But there are two of us that were listed as ambassadors, if then ambassadors. I'm definitely been pulling to bring the statue to Alabama. We'll see what happens. We'll see.
Yeah, we got to do a campaign. We just need to go and get one of those petition things going. They seem to work. Those petition things seem to work. So look, as a result, I'm gonna throw this up here because, in case y'all didn't know, it is Women's History Month. So we've had some dynamic women. We had Sharon Ray North, who's the silky smooth jazz lady from last week. We got Dr. Starks, and then next week, you all, we're going to have a trauma transformation coach, and that
A
is Dorcas
trauma
Pittman.
transformation coach.
And that is going to be awesome. She's going to share her journey of dealing with childhood trauma to
Wow.
reclaiming her life. So that
Wow.
is going to be awesome. Because if you traumatize, you may not even be able to realize what your
Mhm.
gifts and talents are. So that's her
Mhm.
goal, because she was saying she was late in that development. So
Mhm.
we're trying to just show the different vast things that women are doing. And Verlin, I thank you for joining us tonight. He's going to be filling
Hey,
in
don't
when
worry, I'll
Val.
see you in my 1099 fill out.
This is volunteer. So y'all see that Cash App streaming. I need y'all to make
You
some
need to put my
donations.
cash app down there. That's
Yeah.
volunteer.
And before we leave Dr. Starks, tell them, have you scheduled your summer camps yet?
Yeah.
We
things
have
for-
not
Okay.
scheduled our summer camps as of yet, but I do want to plug really quick the Birmingham Times for a feature that they did on me recently, where you can find more information about my story and the work of STREAMInnovations. I had the honor of being the cover for last week for the Birmingham Times, and the story is also
Okay.
listed in al.com. If you wanted to learn more, follow us on social media. That is where you will be able to identify and learn when we have programs coming up. Want to give another shout out to our coding boot camp, where we just recently launched last year a teen tech company.
Oh,
The company is
wow.
run by students that have gone through our coding boot camp, and they develop websites for small businesses that do not have a web presence. So shout out to Caleb, Arian, and Jalen, two of which are seniors, and the two young ladies are students at Carver High School in Birmingham.
That's awesome. That's
Wow.
awesome. Listen,
That
I told
is.
y'all she was boss. She was boss. She is doing it. She is doing it all. So I just dropped the link in the chat for your article so people can go and read it and really get much more detail. So I thank you for coming on. It has been a pleasure. And more important for me, it's been a joy just watching this, because I remember, look, I'm not that old, but she was a younger person.
That works. That's how it works.
She was a younger person. I'm a little bit more mature than her now, but it's just
Uh-huh.
been awesome to see. And I know your mom and dad are just simply proud. And I want to share this. What's so awesome? Your granddad got to see some of this. That
Mm-hmm.
is awesome. That
Mm-hmm.
is definitely awesome because so often, y'all, sometimes grandparents don't get to experience
Mm-hmm.
things like
Mm-hmm.
this. So that is
Mm-hmm.
awesome. He was a well-respected man in Fairfield. I mean, he was Mr. Fairfield.
Okay. Okay.
Granddad
Said for
Starks
him,
was.
he was a man's man, and that is
He
such a
definitely
blessing to
was.
be able to
Definitely
have
was.
someone like that in
So,
your life.
Verlin, you got any closing remarks?
No, I'm just proud to be a part of this and having heard this story. I'm excited to get my son in one of these programs.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
excited
Hey,
too.
for real. And that's it. So, Dr. Starks, do you want to have some closing remarks? Give the people some motivation, encouragement to pursue?
I want to say thank you so much for having me on and to just hear a couple of stories. Thank you for the tea with my mom. And
You done
She gonna
got her
call me
mom in trouble.
tomorrow. She gonna
Yep, you
call
done
me
got her
tomorrow.
mom in trouble.
but also, a lot of the reason that I want to make sure that people understand my journey and know my journey is because we desperately need other people to take up the mantle and go after their passions as well. Not
Yes.
necessarily always to be famous, but also because there's some real problems in our communities, and the only way that we can solve those problems is if people are engaged in problem solving, and that starts
So,
at third grade all the way up to whatever
mhm.
age you are. When you see a problem in your community and you also have an idea for the solution, it's extremely important to be engaged, and I'm happy to be a part of the fabric of my state to hopefully make it better.
That's great. That's great. Well, you all have a good night. We'll see you all next week. Take care.